Stop. Before asking, before imagining, before thinking about what to attract. Stop. Because perhaps all your spiritual searching, all your manifestation rituals, and all your prayers are not signs of faith, but of forgetfulness. Forgetfulness of what you truly are. You have been trying to manifest what already exists. You have been asking the universe for what has already been given, and you have been waiting for signs of a force that has never been outside of you. Humanity is asleep not because it doesn't believe, but because it believes in the wrong place. People believe in the power of time, circumstances, others, but they don't believe in the power of their own inner state. That's why they live in circles, trying to manifest while the true law remains ignored. There is no manifestation. There is only assumption. The law doesn't respond to will, it responds to being. You don't attract what you desire, you attract what you are. And as long as your inner state keeps saying, "I don't have it yet," the universe can't deliver anything beyond the confirmation of that. Most people think faith is about asking forcefully, repeating phrases, visualizing until exhausted. But faith isn't movement, it's stillness. It's resting in being. Faith is the silence that says, "It is already done," because whoever truly knows they have no longer asks. The awakened person doesn't beg for signs, they live the result before seeing it. And that's exactly why they see it. When you say, "I will manifest wealth," the very verb betrays you. Because will projects the power into the future, and the future doesn't exist. All that exists is now the eternal present where all creation has already been completed. The awakened creator doesn't say, "I will be rich." They say, "I am rich." And the world, obedient, begins to reorganize itself to reflect that conviction. You need to understand, the universe isn't a servant who fulfills requests. It's a mirror that reflects states. There isn't someone out there deciding whether you deserve it or not, whether it's the right time or not. There is only the perfect reflection of what you are being deep inside. Therefore, the effort of manifesting is useless, because while you try, you declare that you are not. While you wait, you deny the now. While you seek, you feed the distance. True transformation happens when you realize there is nothing to do, only something to accept. You are the power that creates, the I am that sustains all forms, the center from which everything is born. Nothing is added to you from the outside, everything springs from the state you inhabit. And that state isn't defined by what you say, but by what you feel to be true. When you understand this, anxiety disappears, fear ceases, hurry dissolves, because you realize that everything is already created, just waiting for your conscious acceptance. Manifesting is for those who still doubt, assuming is for those who remember, and what you need isn't coming, it's here. Invisible, perhaps, but real. The only question that remains is, who are you being now? Because the world doesn't respond to what you want, but to what you are. And if you dare to change your inner state, if you dare to live as if you already are what you desire to be, the entire universe will move to confirm that assumption. Therefore, I tell you, stop manifesting. Use this law, the law of assumption. It doesn't ask, doesn't wait, doesn't beg, it knows. And when you know, the world bows. Because reality has no power of its own, it only obeys what you in silence declare to be true. Everything already is, everything is within. The first principle is to abandon effort. Effort is the most subtle trap of the person who believes they are awakening. They think they need to do something, to create, when in fact the very act of doing denies the awareness of already being. Every attempt to push reality, to accelerate what hasn't yet manifested, is a testament to doubt. And doubt, however small it may seem, is the poison that paralyzes the power of assumption. The one who strives doesn't trust the law. They think that through techniques, right words, or repetitions, they can convince the universe to deliver what they desire. But the universe isn't an obedient employee, it's a reflection. And a mirror doesn't respond to force, it responds to the image you offer. Abandoning effort isn't giving up, it's the opposite. It's trusting so deeply that there is no longer any need to act from anxiety. When you understand that the world is just the echo of what you already are, you realize that effort is noise. You don't need to push life. Just silently assume the desired state and remain in it. Because the state, sustained with conviction, is the true act of creation. The physical world is slow but inevitable. It has no choice. It must reflect what is being held in the invisible. Imagine an actor. They don't need to strive to be the character. They just step into the role and live as if it were real. Everything they do, say, and feel is born naturally from that role, so it must be with you. As long as you keep trying, you will only be rehearsing to be. But when you assume the role and inhabit it effortlessly, the world itself begins to respond to the new script. The secret is in feeling, not in forcing. Effort creates resistance because it reveals attachment to the result, and attachment is the confession that you still believe in the power of appearances. The one who truly knows that something is theirs doesn't need to grasp it. They relax, they allow. Trust replaces hurry, and rest becomes the sign of true faith. When you stop fighting, power begins to act. Effort is human, creation is divine. Abandoning effort is the first step towards freedom. It's the transition from servant to creator. Because the servant works, but the creator commands. The servant begs, the creator knows. And the universe, which doesn't understand please, understands only states. While the ordinary person lives trying to change the world through action, the awakened person changes the world through being. They understand that the silence of certainty is more powerful than 1,000 anxious attempts. When you truly understand this principle, you feel a peace that the world cannot give, because you realize that there is nothing to conquer, only something to sustain. Effort ceases and being begins. And in that instant, everything that once seemed distant begins to move in your direction, silently, as if the entire universe had only waited for you to stop trying. The second principle is to inhabit the state, not the desire. Desire is just the call, the initial seed that awakens the memory of what you are really capable of being. But if you remain desiring, you will continue to affirm the absence. Desire is the first step, but it isn't the path. It points the direction, but it doesn't take you there. The ordinary person confuses wanting with creating. They desire, pray, wait, and in doing so, keep alive the distance between them and what they desire. The awakened person, however, understands that desire must be transformed into assumed awareness. They stop saying, "I want," and begin to silently affirm, "I am." To inhabit the state is to mentally enter the already completed reality. It's to live, feel, and react internally as the one who already possesses what they previously called a dream. This isn't a simple visualization, it's an act of deep faith. It's the moment when you cross the veil of appearance and begin to live in the end, in the final result. When you live as if you already are, your body may not see it yet, but your consciousness has already created it. And everything that is created in consciousness is inevitably reproduced in the world of forms. The mistake is in thinking that the state will come when the result appears. But the result only appears when the state is assumed. Everything you see in the physical world is just the echo of what has been accepted inwardly as true. Therefore, as long as you remain desiring, you will continue to vibrate in lack. It's like a person who observes a window and dreams of the landscape on the other side, but never crosses. Desire is the gaze, assumption is the step. Inhabiting the state requires emotional discipline, because the visible world will try to convince you that nothing has changed. It will shout your old beliefs and challenge you to doubt, and that's where few persist. Most abandon the state because they don't see quick signs, but the person who inhabits the state doesn't need proof. They live the truth of the invisible with such conviction that the visible has no choice but to obey. Everything you experience is determined by the state in which you live, not by the words you say. You can affirm, "I am prosperous," 1,000 times, but if deep down you still feel lacking, you are inhabiting poverty. Feeling is the language of the Creator. The word only announces what the feeling has already decreed. To inhabit the state is, therefore, to die to the old. It's to stop identifying with the version that wanted and become the one that already is. This requires courage, because the ego resists change. It wants to continue desiring, because desire maintains control. But the Creator doesn't control, they know, and whoever knows inhabits. When you live entirely within the chosen state, everything around you will begin to reorganize. People, circumstances, paths, everything will align silently to reflect your new being. Because reality isn't something you pursue, it's something you assume. And when you inhabit the state, desire dies and the miracle is born. The third principle is to abandon signs. The human mind, accustomed to living by sight, constantly seeks external confirmations for what it believes. It wants to see to believe. But the awakened creator knows that seeing is the last act, not the first. Signs aren't the beginning of manifestation. They are just the delayed reflection of what has already been established in the invisible. Whoever lives searching for signs still doubts the seed they planted. And doubt is an inverted prayer. It creates absence. The need for signs is the symptom of an insecure mind, which hasn't yet discovered the power of inner silence. The ordinary person prays, affirms, visualizes, and then asks themselves, is it working? They observe the world in search of small coincidences to feel safe. But this constant search for validation is the biggest obstacle to conscious creation. Because every time you look for proof, you confess without realizing it that you don't fully believe. To abandon signs is to act as if you have already seen, even without seeing. It's to live in the conviction that the seed, once planted, will grow on its own. No farmer digs up the earth every day to check if the plant is sprouting. They trust the natural law and wait in peace, so it must be with you. After assuming the desired state, your only duty is to remain in it, without restlessness, without hurry, and without the need for confirmation. The true creator doesn't seek evidence in the outside world. They feel within themselves the certainty that the invisible has already been fulfilled. And when the world begins to change, because it always changes, the awakened person isn't surprised. They just smile because they know that the visible is the last to obey. Signs appear not to convince you, but as an inevitable consequence of your silent faith. The mistake of many is to abandon the state because they didn't see quick results. They say, nothing happened. But everything was already happening invisibly. The time between the seed and the fruit is just the interval in which faith is tested. And those who give up at this point reveal that they never truly believed. The true creator understands that signs belong to the past. They show what you believed yesterday, not what you are assuming now. Therefore, they don't observe them, they transcend them. They keep their mind fixed on the end, and the end begins to shape the path. The person who abandons signs discovers a freedom that the world doesn't know, because they no longer depend on appearances to feel safe. When you stop seeking proof and begin to rest in certainty, something changes deeply within you. Inner silence becomes power. Trust replaces anxiety. And the world, like a docile mirror, begins to reflect exactly what you have already accepted as true. Not because you saw a sign, but because you stopped needing it. The fourth principle is to understand that imagination is the altar of creation. It's there, and only there, that everything begins. Before any form, before any spoken word, before any external event, there is the silent image created in the mind. That image is the invisible mold of what will be seen. The ordinary person thinks imagination is fantasy, a refuge from reality. But the truth is the opposite. The visible world is the pale shadow of what the imagination sustains with conviction. It's in the imagination that the divine works, and the one who understands this understands the power they carry. You imagine all the time, consciously or not. Every fear, every expectation, every memory is a form of imagination. The problem is that most imagine unconsciously, creating what they don't want. They live reliving failures, fearing losses, rehearsing future pains. And then they ask why life repeats the same patterns. The answer is simple. The mind is a mirror that reflects what you constantly contemplate. You become what you imagine with feeling. Conscious imagination, however, is the sacred domain of the awakened creator. It's the space where they close the eyes of the body and open the eyes of the spirit. There they don't plead, they declare. They don't desire, they accept. They don't wait, they see. And what is seen internally, with emotion and certainty, has no choice but to manifest on the external plane. This is the true prayer, not the words said, but the state felt. When you imagine something with faith, you are giving life to a new reality. The invisible isn't less real than the visible, it's more real, because everything proceeds from it. Imagination is the womb of the world. Everything you touch was born first in this inner space. It's the place where time doesn't exist, where all possibilities are available, just waiting for the touch of consciousness that says, "This is it." But purity is needed to create consciously, because the altar of imagination doesn't accept duplicity. If you enter it with doubt, you will leave with confusion. If you enter with faith, you will leave with power. Therefore, the awakened person doesn't imagine to escape reality, but to recreate it. They understand that imagining is a sacred act. It's the moment when the human meets God within themselves. When you assume an image and keep it alive without effort, it begins to solidify in the invisible until the physical world has no choice but to bow before it. The ordinary person calls this coincidence miracle or luck. The awakened person calls it law, because they know that everything that exists out there is just the faithful reflection of what has been sustained in here. Therefore, take care of your imagination as one who guards a temple. Don't allow fear to dwell there. Don't accept images of scarcity, of failure, of limitation. What you imagine with feeling is what you offer to the universe as a decree. And the universe doesn't argue, it just obeys. The fifth principle is to understand that the end is the beginning. Everything you desire is already completed on the invisible plane, just waiting for your conscious acceptance. Time is an illusion of the human mind. In divine consciousness, everything has already happened. When you learn to live from the end, instead of walking towards it, you reverse the flow of creation. The ordinary person lives waiting. One day I will be happy, one day I will be prosperous, one day I will find love. But the awakened person lives the end now. They feel, think, and act as the one who has already arrived. And the universe, without resistance, reorganizes itself to confirm this certainty. Living from the end is the secret of all true transformation. When you mentally place yourself in the state of having what you desire, without worrying about the how or when, you plant the seed of inevitable reality. This seed contains the whole. It doesn't need you to understand the details, only to trust the law. Just as a tree is already contained within the seed, your future is already contained within the assumption you sustain with faith. The problem is that most lie looking at the soil, waiting to see the sprout, and upon seeing nothing, they give up. But the awakened creator knows that the invisible is more real than the visible, and that time is just the interval needed for the invisible to become visible. Living the end requires courage. Courage to look foolish, to act differently, to remain silent while everyone says it's impossible. The person who lives the end doesn't seek approval. They move in peace because they have already seen the result within themselves. They don't pray asking, they give thanks. They don't seek signs, they confirm internally. It is already done. This is the faith that moves mountains, not because it changes the world, but because it changes the observer. And when the observer changes, the world changes with them. The human mind resists this because it has been trained to believe in time, effort, and logical sequence. But the spirit knows no time. It inhabits the eternal now, where all possibilities coexist. And when you choose one and live from it, everything else bows. The end already exists, and you are only called to assume it. Living from the end is living like a king in the midst of chaos with serenity, because you know that everything has already been decreed. The external world may seem contradictory, but that doesn't shake them. They know that appearances are just old echoes that will dissolve before the new assumption. The one who lives the end doesn't fear the future because they have already seen it. And it is in this state that creation is completed. Because when you feel yourself in the realized end, the vibration of your being changes and reality needs to adjust. The universe has no choice. It always responds to the state you inhabit. When you live the end, the path is revealed, the doors open, and the impossible bows. For the end assumed with faith is the true beginning of everything. Now that you have understood, stop fighting, stop asking, stop manifesting. The universe doesn't respond to words, it responds to states. And your state is your constant prayer. Every thought sustained with emotion is a seed cast in the soil of consciousness, and the fruit will come. Not because you begged, but because you assumed. The law doesn't distinguish between good and evil, deserved or unjust. It only reproduces what is maintained with conviction. The world doesn't punish or reward you, it reflects you. And what you see as reality is just the faithful portrait of what you are being in the invisible. From today, abandon the role of the spiritual beggar who seeks signs, rituals, and formulas to attract what they desire. You are not a supplicant before the universe. You are the universe itself in human form, experiencing the power to create. Your I am is the name of God in action. When you say, I am prosperous, I am loved, I am free, the very creative power moves to confirm that affirmation. But when you say, I want, I need, I hope, the law also obeys and keeps you wanting, needing, and hoping. You were not made to beg for miracles, but to generate them within yourself. And when this truth becomes alive in you, life ceases to be a battlefield and transforms into a docile mirror. Everything begins to flow, not because the world has changed, but because you have changed your center. The one who inhabits the desired state in silence already possesses everything, and the proof of this is the peace they feel even before seeing. So, rise as one who remembers. Walk with the calmness of one who has already arrived. Speak with the authority of one who already is. The universe has no choice but to obey the state you sustain. With each breath, repeat internally, everything already is. Everything is within. This is the password that opens all doors. Stop manifesting. Assume the state. Live the end. And you will see the invisible become visible before your eyes. Because nothing is outside and nothing is distant. What you seek, you already are. And when humanity awakens to this truth, heaven itself bows before them. Everything already is. Everything is within. Listen carefully. Today I am not speaking to you about a distant idea, nor a beautiful thought to calm the mind. What I bring to you is a decree, a key that can transform everything you touch, everything you are. This decree is condensed into a simple, direct, and unshakable mantra. I already have. Understand clearly, it is not an empty phrase to be repeated like someone singing without knowing the lyrics. It is not superstition. It is not childish magic. I already have is a creative declaration, a hammer that seals your reality in the invisible, for it to then materialize in the visible. Every time you affirm, I already have, you are closing the door of the beggar who asks, who implores, who waits, and you are opening the door of the heir who possesses, who knows, who dwells in certainty. This is the call of the law. The law never commands you to live as if you are going to receive. It demands that you live as one who has already received. The one who asks confirms absence. The one who declares possession already moves in abundance. When you say, I already have, it is not just a word, it is the posture of one who knows that the invisible is the cause and the visible merely the consequence. The world outside is always delayed in relation to the inner state. Appearances are shadows. What you assume as true within yourself, sooner or later, will appear on the outside. That is why this mantra is so powerful. It does not ask, it does not negotiate, it does not await signs, it decrees, it affirms. It commands the universe to bow before your silent conviction, and you need to hear this now. Life does not respond to those who plead, but to those who assume. I already have is the reminder that you are not a stranger asking for crumbs, but a creator rediscovering your inheritance. Every time you pronounce this mantra, you are not trying to convince the world. You are awakening within yourself the authority that already exists. Therefore, from this moment on, no longer say, one day I will have. Who knows? Maybe. Eliminate the distant future. Eliminate doubt disguised as hope. Declare, I already have. Health, I already have. Prosperity, I already have. Love, I already have. Freedom, I already have. This is the starting point of transformation. The mantra is not about waiting. It is about assuming. It is about living as the owner of that which your eyes do not yet see, but which your heart already knows is real. The world you see with your eyes is merely the echo of a state already assumed within you. Never be mistaken. Visible reality is always delayed, always slow, always a lagging reflection of what has already been conceived in the invisible. It is like the shadow projected on the ground. It never moves before the body, never precedes the gesture. The body is the cause, the shadow is merely the effect. So too is your life. Every circumstance, every detail, every encounter is merely the shadow of what has already been held in the secret of your imagination. When you say, "I already have," you are sowing in the invisible soil that which will inevitably appear as a harvest in the outer world. The difficulty for most is confusing the effect with the cause. They look at the bank balance and think that is the truth. They observe the diseased body and believe that is the final sentence. They see loneliness and convince themselves that there is no way out. But all of this is shadow. The true cause is the inner state. When you declare, "I already have," you are planting a new root. It may be that for a time, the old shadows still project themselves, just as the sun takes time to move across the sky. But sooner or later, the reflection will have to change because the cause has changed. Think of the farmer who casts the seed into the earth. On the first day, the earth seems inert, cold, silent. If he judges solely by appearances, he will say that nothing has happened. But he knows that in the invisible, life has already begun to pulsate, and because he knows, he does not pull up the seed, he does not dig the soil in despair, he does not abandon the field. He remains confident because he understands the order of life. In the same way, when you affirm, "I already have," what happens first is not visible. It is silent, it is subtle, it is invisible, but it is real, and soon it will become inevitable. The common mistake is to use the mantra as a disguised plea. Many say, "I already have," but inwardly they think, "I don't have it yet, I hope it comes soon." This is the contradiction that nullifies the law. The universe does not respond to loose words, it responds to the assumed state. If deep down you still perceive yourself as needy, as someone who is waiting, it does not matter how many times you repeat it. What creates is conviction, not the sound of the lips. "I already have" only has power when it is accepted in the heart as an accomplished fact, even if the eyes insist on showing the opposite. Understand, the visible is always delayed, like news of something that has already happened. When you understand this, you learn to ignore the delay. You learn not to be shaken by the interval between the decree and the manifestation. It is in this interval that many give up. They observe the old shadows and think that the law has failed. But the law never fails. It is the person who fails, who, not seeing immediate results, abandons the state and returns to asking like a beggar. If you firmly uphold "I already have," not as a request but as a declaration, you place yourself in the position of the Creator. The world, sooner or later, will have to obey. The bank balance changes, the body responds, life reorganizes itself because the cause has been altered. The visible has no choice, it bows to the invisible, and the invisible, when assumed with conviction, is more solid than stone, more certain than time, more faithful than any human promise. That is why the first principle is so decisive. It teaches you not to be impressed by what your eyes see, but to remain anchored in what your heart has already assumed. When you declare, "I already have," you become a conscious farmer. You plant in the invisible and know that the harvest will come. It does not matter if the soil seems empty. It does not matter if time seems long. The effect always follows the cause, and the cause now is you. The discipline of not contradicting your own decree is the touchstone that separates those who merely talk about the law from those who truly live by it. Many, upon waking in the morning, affirm with strength and conviction, "I already have." But throughout the day, faced with an unexpected bill, a look of disdain, or a persistent symptom, they soon let slip. "It hasn't come yet. It's not working. I guess it's not for me." And it is at that moment that they tear with their own hands what they had sown. The law is not a game of words, it is a sustained state. The universe does not respond to loose phrases, it responds to the silence laden with certainty. Think of a king seated on his throne. He issues a decree in the morning. So it shall be. His servants set out to execute it. But if, in the afternoon, he changes his mind and says, "No, Perhaps it won't be so. The servants become confused, return, suspend the order. The next day he decrees again. Then he denies it again. And so, the entire palace lives in disorder. Many live exactly this way. They decree and revoke, they affirm and deny, they plant and pull up the seed before it germinates. The discipline is to remain like the king who speaks once and trusts that everything will move to fulfill it. This discipline requires vigilance, not against others but against your own mind. The thoughts that arise from habit, the words that escape unconsciously, the impulse to look at circumstances and use them as judges. It is at that moment that you need to remember, the law does not know it hasn't come yet. For the law there is only what you have assumed as true. When doubt arises, do not fight it as an enemy. Simply return to the decree and repeat silently, I already have. Not like someone insisting out of fear, but like someone recalling an unshakable truth. Discipline also means not negotiating with external signs. If the world shows scarcity, you do not yield. If it shows illness, you do not retreat. If it shows rejection, you do not give in. You remain in the state as if you were a rock. This firmness is what separates the creator from the beggar. The beggar asks and awaits evidence. The creator decrees and remains until the world bows. It is in this sustained silence that the invisible works in your favor. Discipline is not rigid like steel, but firm like deep roots. You do not need to shout, you do not need to repeat until exhaustion. You do not need to prove anything to anyone. You just need to maintain yourself in the assumed state as one who already knows they own what they have decreed. When you manage to sustain I already have without contradicting it, you create a force field around you. Everything that does not correspond to that state begins to lose power over you. Problems may still stir, but they no longer have the same strength. It is like someone lighting a lamp in a dark room. The shadow may writhe, but it cannot resist. This discipline is, in itself, an act of living faith. It is not blind faith, but conscious faith. You know that the visible is shadow and that the cause has already been decreed. Every time you refuse to contradict yourself, you strengthen yourself. Every time you sustain it, you get closer to the harvest. And when you least expect it, the world, obediently, will show in matter what you never abandoned in spirit. Living as if you already have is the most practical and at the same time the most challenging test of the law. It is not enough to affirm I already have, in silence, and then walk through the day as someone needy, anxious, or desperate. If you say I already have, you need to embody this in the way you speak, the way you walk, the way you react. This is where many stumble. They proclaim abundance, but behave like the poor. They proclaim health, but identify with illness. They proclaim love, but still live as rejected. The mantra cannot remain confined to the lips. It needs to become flesh in your gestures. It needs to translate into posture, gaze, presence. Imagine someone who desires wealth. He can repeat, I already have prosperity, 1,000 times, but if he continues to look at prices with fear, if he continues to talk about crisis, if he continues to surround himself with thoughts of scarcity, what he truly assumes is lack. It is like wearing a crown and at the same time crawling on the ground. The world obeys not just what you say, but what you are, what you vibrate, the state you sustain. The same happens with health. The body may be fragile, but if within yourself you already perceive yourself as healed, your posture changes, your breathing changes. Your faith reflects in the sparkle of your eyes. The sick person who refuses to inhabit the identity of illness has already planted the cause of healing. This living as if does not mean pretending or deceiving yourself. Pretense is empty, it is theater to impress others. What the law demands is not to pretend, but to inwardly assume the desired identity, and let that naturally overflow into your actions. You do not pretend to be healthy. You move as one who already is. You do not pretend to be loved. You treat yourself and see yourself as worthy of love. You do not pretend to be free. You act as one who already owns their own path. The key lies in naturalness. If you need to force it too much, if you need to struggle to appear, it is because you have not yet fully assumed it. When the identity is real, it expresses itself effortlessly. Look at a child who receives a new toy. She does not need to repeat, I have it. Her spontaneous joy reveals that she has already taken possession of it. So it should be with, "I already have." A certainty so natural that it becomes your second skin. And make no mistake, the world perceives it. People around you feel the difference. When you live as one who already possesses, your presence becomes magnetic. Your energy changes the atmosphere. The world treats you according to the state you assume. Spiritual beggars attract pity and contempt. Those who live as heirs attract respect and opportunity. Living as if you already have is the point where imagination becomes reality in motion. It is the place where faith ceases to be abstract and is embodied in daily attitudes. You do not wait to be, you already are. You do not wait to have, you already have. And because you already have, you walk upright, speak with authority, look at life without fear. It is in this living that the invisible and the visible meet, and reality without choice manifests the decree you have already decided to inhabit. Anticipated joy is the seal of the true Creator. Whoever truly understands the law does not wait to rejoice when they see the result. They rejoice because they have already decreed, already assumed, already possess in the invisible. The common person needs the harvest to smile. The Creator smiles because he knows the seed has already germinated, even if the earth outside appears dry. This is the difference between one who asks and one who commands. The beggar awaits proof. The Creator celebrates beforehand. When you affirm, "I already have," and let joy flood your heart, you are proving to yourself that you believe. This is not superficial optimism, but a certainty that vibrates and overflows. It is like someone who discovers hidden treasure and even without showing it to anyone, can no longer contain the sparkle in their eyes. The gratitude that arises before the manifestation is a sign that you are already inhabiting the desired state. Many nullify their decrees because they remain heavy, tense, anxious, as if they still depend on the external result to feel secure. But this weight is the confession that they have not yet fully believed. The true practice is to choose lightness now. Choose to laugh before the visible victory. Choose to give thanks before the harvest. Choose to walk as one who already carries within them what they wish to see outside. Think of a pregnant mother. She does not yet have the baby in her arms, but her joy is uncontained. She organizes the room, buys clothes, talks about her child as if he were already present. For her, there is no doubt, no anxious waiting. There is only the celebration of the inevitable. Such should be the spirit of one who says, "I already have." They celebrate because they know that what they have assumed in the invisible is as real as the life growing silently in the womb. Anticipated joy is not just an emotional detail. It is the energy that paves the way for manifestation. A mind that rejoices creates space, vibrates in harmony with fullness, and repels doubt. A heart that fills with gratitude before seeing becomes fertile ground where nothing can prevent the harvest. One who remains sad, waiting for proof, stays in the state of lack. But one who rejoices has already transferred their consciousness to the state of possession, and this is what the external world will obey. That is why every time you repeat, "I already have," you should allow joy to envelop you. Not as an artificial effort, but as the natural reflection of one who has found their inheritance. Feel yourself now as the owner of the treasure, even if your eyes do not see it. Laugh silently. Give thanks in a low voice. Walk lightly. This is living faith. Conviction expressed in gratitude before the harvest. And when you least expect it, you will realize that reality has bowed to your inner state. Doors that seemed closed open. People respond differently. Life gains new colors. Not because the world decided to change by chance, but because you changed first. The anticipated joy was proof that you were already the owner, and the universe could do nothing but confirm it. The courage to ignore time is perhaps the final test of your faith. Most despair because they look at the clock, count the days, measure results, and not seeing quick changes, conclude that nothing has happened. But time is merely a stage, never the cause. Time does not create, time merely reveals what has already been planted in the invisible. When you say, "I already have," your decree is already established. The only thing that can divert the outcome is your own impatience, because by doubting you abandon the assumed state and return to being a beggar. Look at the farmer who plants. He does not watch the field every minute, anxious for the seed to sprout. If he doubted the earth, he would pull up the seed, dig the soil, destroy the process. But he trusts. He knows that time is merely the medium through which life reveals itself. So too should be the spirit of the Creator. By declaring, "I already have," you anchor yourself in the eternal now, where everything already exists. Time may seem slow, but nothing can delay what is already accomplished in the invisible. This courage to ignore time requires detachment. It means not comparing your journey with others, not measuring yourself by society's calendars, not despairing because the manifestation has not yet appeared. It means resting in the decree. The world may shout that it is too late, that your time has passed, that there is no more chance. But the law does not know human clocks. The law responds only to the assumed state. And here is the truth that few accept. Haste is a sign of doubt, and doubt weakens the decree. The Creator is not in a hurry, because they already know they possess. They walk in peace, because their consciousness is already at the accomplished end. This is the courage needed to close your ears to time, ignore signs of delay, and remain as one who already has, even if your eyes do not confirm it. When you sustain this courage, you discover that time becomes an ally. Circumstances reorganize, the right people appear, doors align. Not because you chased after them, but because you refuse to abandon the assumed state. Time ceases to be an enemy and becomes merely the stage on which your harvest flourishes. Therefore, do not let waiting steal your faith. Do not say, "One day I will have." Say now, firmly, "I already have." It does not matter if your eyes do not see. It does not matter if the days pass. The cause has already been planted and the effect is inevitable. Time decides nothing. Your conviction decides everything. And if you sustain this conviction, sooner or later, your entire life will have to bow to your decree. Now you know there is no greater force than the state you choose to assume. The world is not your enemy. Time is not your prison. Circumstances are not your sentence. All of this is merely a reflection, a shadow projected by what you silently hold within yourself. And if until today you have lived as a beggar, asking, waiting, pleading, today is the moment to end this cycle. The Creator does not ask, the Creator decrees. The Creator does not await signs, the Creator dwells in certainty. Repeat within yourself, not like one who implores, but like one who already possesses. I already have. Say this and feel the weight of lack dissolve. Say this and notice anxiety dissipating. Say this and see born within you the posture of one who already owns what they seek. Health, I already have. Prosperity, I already have. Love, I already have. Freedom, I already have. Do not live any longer as a stranger to your own inheritance. Walk as an heir. Breathe as an owner. Speak as one who already possesses. Sustain this decree until the world without choice bows and confirms what you already knew. Because the entire universe is a servant to the conviction you carry within. Therefore, from now on, no longer beg for external changes. Command in silence, with certainty, and see how reality bends before you. The most powerful mantra is not a future promise, it is eternal presence. I already have. And because you already have, sooner or later everything around you will have to recognize it. The world is a mirror fixed by conviction. Everything you see, feel, and experience is merely the projection of the images you hold within. The mirror has no will of its own. It merely reflects with precision what is before it. Similarly, reality creates nothing new. It merely reflects the content of your being. If you insist on seeing the world as hostile, it will show you enemies. If you believe in scarcity, it will follow you, even amidst riches. But if within you blossoms confidence, peace, and the certainty that everything works in your favor, then the inevitable reflection will be harmony. The world, therefore, is innocent. It is merely the stage where your beliefs take shape. The ignorant person struggles with the mirror. He tries to change the reflection without touching the image. He taps on the glass, complains about what he sees, seeks external solutions, but nothing changes, because the cause remains intact. It's like trying to wipe a dirty face clean by wiping the reflection in the mirror. True awakening begins when you understand that there is nothing to fix externally. Everything that appears in your life is a symbol, a silent warning of where your attention has been resting. Every person who appears is a messenger of your own inner state. Therefore, there are no culprits in the world, only reflections. When man awakens to this principle, he stops reacting and begins to create. He understands that changing a belief is changing the entire universe, and this process requires not effort, but awareness. It is the simple act of observing the reflection and saying, "This is merely what I believed to be true until now." With this perception, energy shifts, and the mirror begins to transform. Inner change is the only real revolution. Conviction is the cement that holds the image in the mirror. As long as you believe in an idea, it will remain projected, no matter what you do. Therefore, the work of the conscious person is not to fight against the reflection, but to dissolve the belief that generates it. When fear disappears, the situation that represented it dissolves. When the feeling of scarcity ceases, opportunities arise as if they were always there. Life reorganizes from the inside out. Understanding that the world is a mirror is liberating, but it also demands responsibility, because from that moment on, there are no more victims, only unconscious creators who have forgotten their power. Everything that happens, happens through you, not to you. The mirror never judges, never punishes, never errs. It merely reflects. And when you change what you offer it, the inner image, the sustained feeling, the idea of yourself, the reflection changes with divine precision. Then the world becomes an ally, not an adversary. It bows before the clarity of the being who recognizes himself as the cause and ceases to beg for effects. The now is the only point of power. Man lives imprisoned between two ghosts. The past he calls memory, and the future he calls hope. But both are illusions projected by the mind. Creation doesn't happen yesterday or tomorrow. It always happens in this eternal instant you call now. The past is merely the record of states of consciousness already lived. The future is the echo of the beliefs you sustain in this moment. Therefore, changing the now is rewriting the past and redesigning the future. Everything that exists in potential is accessible here in the silence of this instant. The most common error is to think that power lies in waiting. Man says, "One day I will be, one day I will have, one day I will change." But as long as he places power outside the present, he loses it. For time is merely the distance the mind creates between desire and acceptance. The truth is that the moment you feel you already are, is the moment everything begins to move. The universe responds to the vibration of the now, not to the promise of later. If you sustain a desire without feeling now as if you already possess it, you continue to vibrate in absence, and the future never arrives, because consciousness continues to reside in the not yet. The now is the portal through which all realities overlap. In it, all versions of you coexist, waiting for your attention to choose one to live. Every emotion, every thought, and every image accepted as true opens an invisible door. When you align yourself with the feeling of your desired self, even for seconds, you connect with the reality line where that self is already real. And that connection is enough to alter the course of your world. The power of now is not poetic. It is literal. It is the raw energy of creation concentrating in a single point, your present consciousness. Therefore, do not wait. Do not imagine there is anything to achieve, because time is a circle, and everything you seek already exists at some point within it. When you enter the state of "I am now what I desire to be," time bends before this decision. The world begins to react, rearranging itself to reflect the new you. The present is the paintbrush, and feeling is the ink with which you paint the next scenes of your life. Eternity is not in the future. It is hidden in this exact instant, waiting to be recognized. Each time you breathe consciously and feel the power of being, you dissolve the weight of time. And in this state of absolute presence, the impossible becomes natural because you have returned to the origin, to the point where all realities meet, and where God, who is you in essence, creates with a simple act of consciousness, the now. Imagination is the inner Christ itself, the creative power in action. It is imagination that gives form to the invisible, that makes the intangible tangible, the abstract concrete. Everything man sees, touches, or experiences in the sensory world was born first in the silent workshop of imagination. The house you inhabit, the body you wear, the name you answer to, all were at some point a mental image assumed as real. But humanity forgot this divine origin and came to believe that imagination is just a game, a powerless fantasy. However, he who awakens understands that conscious imagining is the same as creating. For what consciousness imagines and feels as true inevitably manifests in the world. Imagination is the door through which the infinite becomes form. When you imagine something with feeling, you are shaping invisible substance, organizing the forces of the universe to give body to what is already true on another level of existence. You are the creative center of all worlds, and yet you continue to believe that power is outside, in people, governments, circumstances, or luck. This is humanity's great deception, believing that God is distant when he has always been the very faculty of imagining and feeling. When Neville said imagination creates reality, he wasn't speaking in metaphors. He was describing an exact law. The Christ is not a distant figure in time, but the eternal principle of creation within every person. He is the consciousness that says, I am. When you affirm something from that state, the entire universe bows to confirm it. The I am is the seed of manifestation, and imagination is the field where it blossoms. Everything you sustain with conviction in this fertile ground will sooner or later be revealed to your senses. There is no exception. Those who understand this truth stop seeking proof and begin creating experiences. They know they don't need to beg, just to remember. For to imagine is to remember what already exists. What you vividly imagine and feel as real is already being gestated in the invisible. The time that separates the image from form is merely the density of your doubt. When faith replaces uncertainty, the interval disappears. It all begins with a moment of clarity, a moment when man, tired of repeating the same cycles, perceives something subtle, almost invisible. The world is not the cause, it is the effect. The reality he so fears, pursues, or tries to control is merely the shadow cast by an inner state. It is in this silent, intimate, and profound instant that the veil begins to fall. The human mind, accustomed to looking outward for answers, finally turns inward and there finds the true center of creative power. If you understand this, you understand everything. For the secret of all manifestation, of every miracle, lies in understanding that you are the cause and not the effect, the observer and the creator simultaneously. The external world is an old photograph of your consciousness. Every event, every face, every circumstance is the echo of a state already lived, of a feeling already accepted as real at some point in inner time. Just as sunlight reveals the image latent in a film's negative, life merely reveals what was hidden in your imagination. When you try to change the world, it's like trying to change the photograph without touching the negative. The image may seem static, but the cause remains active within you. Therefore, whoever tries to improve life without first changing themselves merely rearranges the shadows without altering the light that projects them. Jumping between parallel realities is not a supernatural act, nor a distant quantum trick. It is an act of remembrance. It is recalling who you truly are, the conscious power that shapes time, space, and all experiences. Realities are infinite because states of consciousness are infinite. With each breath, you inhabit a specific universe, one that corresponds to your dominant feeling. The poor man who desires wealth still lives in the reality of lack, while the man who, even in silence, feels rich in essence, has already crossed the veil into another world. The body may remain in the same place, but the universe around it reorganizes in response to the new state. There is no journey to be made. There is only a shift in attention. Where your consciousness rests, there you live. And this is the great mystery that the ordinary person ignores. They believe they are trapped in a fixed destiny, when in fact, they change destiny with each sustained emotion, with each image accepted as true. The leap between realities is not an escape. It is a silent choice. And this choice is made not with effort but with conviction. Therefore, before seeking any technique, pause and observe. Where is your attention now? In which inner reality are you residing at this instant? For the world, like an obedient mirror, merely reflects the house where your soul resides. When you understand that changing reality is changing your state, and that this state is determined by the feeling you sustain, then naturally, spontaneously, and inevitably, you will realize that you have always been the creator, and that by changing within, everything that exists outside bows in reverence to the new you. Everything already exists. This is one of the most difficult truths to accept, because man, entangled in time, believes that what he desires is not yet. He imagines he needs to create what he wants, that there is a path to travel between now and the future, that something needs to happen for him to achieve what he seeks. But the truth is that all possibilities already coexist in the vast field of consciousness. Creation is complete. There is nothing new to be done, only different states to be experienced. When you understand this, you realize that you are not the builder of the universe, but the explorer of an infinite realm that already is. You don't create gold, you just discover the mine. You don't create sound, you just tune into the frequency. You don't create love, you just vibrate in its presence. So it is with everything. Man lives surrounded by infinite worlds, versions of himself that already are. There is a you who triumphed, a you who failed, a you who found love, and another who lost it. All coexist in the now, awaiting the focus of your consciousness. The choice of what you call reality is not made by merit, luck, or chance, but by resonance. The state you feel as true is what manifests. Therefore, the secret is not in making it happen, but in accepting what already is in the invisible. Each time you say "I am," you are choosing a line of reality. If you say "I am prosperous" and feel the truth of those words, you enter the frequency of abundance, and the visible world simply adjusts. The error of most is to seek outside what can only be found within. Man thinks, "When I have, then I will be." But the universe responds in reverse. When you are, then you will have. Desire is not a sign of lack, but a calling. It points to the reality that already exists in potential. Yearning is the remembrance of what is already true at another level of consciousness. Therefore, when you desire something, it is not to create what is missing, but to move into the state where it is already real. Desire is the map that leads from one reality to another. Imagine a radio. All stations exist at the same time, but you only hear the one you're tuned into. The fact that you don't hear the others doesn't mean they don't exist. Similarly, when you are vibrating in fear, the reality of love is present, but invisible to you. The quantum leap happens the moment you shift your focus, when you withdraw your attention from what you fear and fix it, with quiet faith, on what you desire. The universe doesn't need to be convinced. It already is. The only task is to choose, sustain, and feel. Because man does not create reality, he selects it. And what he selects with feeling, the physical world is compelled to reflect. Feeling is the portal. It is the invisible bridge between the invisible and the visible, between the inner state and the outer reflection. Nothing can manifest in the physical world without first being felt as real in consciousness. Man tries incessantly to think positively, affirm, repeat phrases, but forgets that thought without feeling is like a seed cast onto marble. It doesn't take root. The universe doesn't respond to words. It responds to the emotional vibration that sustains them. Feeling is the secret language of God, and when you speak in that language, the entire world understands you. Many believe that feeling is merely reacting to what happens, but the true creator feels deliberately. He learns to inhabit the emotional state corresponding to what he desires, even if the external world still contradicts it. It is this silent act of feeling before seeing that reorders the world around him. Neville said, "Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled." This means acting like the actor who, before the stage is set, already lives the role completely, until the audience, the world, believes it. You don't force the exterior to change. You change yourself until the exterior has no choice but to reflect that change. Reality is not solid, it is malleable and responds to your conviction. The man who feels fear does not attract problems because he thinks about them, but because he feels that danger is real. Similarly, the man who feels security and abundance even amidst chaos enters a vibrational field where only those experiences can exist. Feeling is like an invisible magnet. It pulls circumstances that correspond to its frequency. This is why purely mental attempts to change life fail. Feeling is the fuel that gives life to the mental image. Try closing your eyes and imagining the scene of your fulfilled desire. See it with the eyes of the heart. Feel yourself there, now. Not as an observer, but as one who lives it. Notice the sensations of the environment, the weight of a relaxed body, the gentle joy of something that is already yours. If you can maintain this state for a few moments, the invisible world will shift, because on the plane of consciousness, feeling is the creative act, and the universe is merely its echo. The secret is that you don't need to make it happen, you just need to maintain the feeling that it has already happened. When the emotion of completeness replaces the anxiety of waiting, the leap occurs, the bridge is crossed. You have ceased to be the seeker, and have become the one who already is. And in that silent instant, the impossible ceases to exist, because the entire world bends before the feeling sustained with faith. Therefore, when you sit in silence and visualize the scene of your fulfilled desire, know that you are touching eternity. In that instant, the Christ within you creates worlds. And when you open your eyes, the visible world will begin to reorganize in obedience to the image you sustained. This is true prayer, not words, but inner vision sustained with love and certainty. For conscious imagining is participating in the creative act of God, and what is imagined with faith is not a dream, it is destiny in gestation. Now you know. The world you so try to understand, change or control is merely the reflection of what you accept yourself to be. No power acts outside of you. Everything that exists through you. When you understand this, fear dissolves, doubt loses its grip, and effort becomes unnecessary. Because life is not a struggle, it is an obedient mirror. It responds faithfully to the feeling you sustain, to the vision you nurture in silence. You don't need to beg the universe, you just need to remember that you are the universe itself in human form, the Creator God experiencing the game of separation to rediscover himself. The leap between realities is not a physical leap, but a transition of consciousness. Each time you change what you feel to be true, you move into a new world, even if your eyes still see the old one. Everything you desire has already been created, and the path to it is not a road through time, but an alignment in the now. Reality changes when you change, and the external world has no choice but to mirror the new frequency of your being. This is the law, immutable and precise. So do not wait for signs, do not seek guarantees. Close your eyes, breathe, and assume now the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Live within it as one who has already arrived. Feel the weight of certainty, the calm of one who already possesses. Remain in that state long enough for the new to become more real than the old. And when you open your eyes, walk as one who knows, not as one who waits. Because the universe is a faithful servant of the dominant feeling, and the feeling you sustain is the decree that the world must obey. Everything already is. You are the creative center, the dreamer, and the dream. There is nothing to seek, only to remember. Remember, therefore, your true name, I am, and live accordingly. At every instant, choose the state you wish to embody. And when the world like a mirror shows you the reflection of that choice, smile in silence. For in that smile lies the confirmation of the most sublime mystery: man and God are one, and the power to create realities has always been and always will be within you.